Hello, everyone, in the second Agentic Commerce Live that me and Paweł are hosting for you. So I'm Filip Rakowski. I'm a CTO and co-founder of Alokai. There's also Paweł Jacek. Paweł, introduce yourself.
Paweł Jacek. I'm a second time guest here. I am 20 years in technology. I would want to say I'm 20 years into AI journey, but no, that's not true. I'm 20 years in digital commerce as a technology expert, and last 2 years I'm like main direction of travel is obviously the topic of how AI will enhance the way we do shopping, how AI will change the technology that supports shopping. That's me.
Yeah, from my experience, Paweł is absolutely like a true geek when it comes to agentic commerce. So I hope we'll have some interesting discussion. And my camera got blurred. What do I do about this? Wait a second. I love when things do this.
Your camera doesn't like you.
It should. It actually should like me. Okay, maybe in the meantime it will de-blur because I'm actually won't be the most important thing in here. It's actually getting a little bit more shape right now. So what we'll talk about today is extremely exciting, to be honest, because if you are following me on LinkedIn or if you are following Alokai on LinkedIn, you actually see that we have released something called OpenAI apps framework for e-commerce that is allowing merchants to pretty much build their own applications that are landing into AI. And the topic of today's discussion between me and Paweł will be exactly that. So I'll be trying to, first of all, introduce you to the concept and tell you a little bit about like where we are industry-wise, where it's all right now, if OpenAI is the only player that is doing something with that, or maybe there is more, like where it is heading, etc. And the second thing is we will try to predict a little bit of the future. It's never easy, but we'll be discussing about the implications of what we are seeing on the e-commerce market. We'll be talking about the possibilities, like, okay, for whom is it? Will it be something that you immediately have to jump into and adopt, or maybe it's something just to watch? All of those questions will be answered, but we'll be also asking you to ask questions, because the general idea for this format is that me and Paweł were dropping some information, we're having a gentle discussion about this and that, but at the same time we would love to hear questions from you and actually discuss them, because the general concept is like we are learning together. So without further ado, and maybe with one more try of making my camera work as it should.
I think it deserves a refresh, and in the meantime we can share some good content, Philip, so don't worry.
Okay, well, it's probably gonna end up like this for the rest of the day. So I will start with a small introduction of this. So in October, so not that long ago, ChatGPT released something called Apps SDK. And this Apps SDK is pretty much a way for developers to build applications that are contextually popping inside ChatGPT. What does it mean? So imagine, well, I think this image is actually telling a lot, but imagine a situation when you want to book a trip somewhere. And when you're booking this trip, sometimes it's going to be quite hard to do everything from a traditional interface, especially when we are talking about like real interactions rather than just reading text. So what it is allowing to pretty much like build a small application that appears inside ChatGPT that a user can interact with, and this application then can book you flights, book you a hotel. Maybe it can also allow you to do some other interactions like ordering pizza. So this is what this is really for. You can think about this as a small micro application that allows you to interact with something in the outside world that the brand has built. And this is very important thing. Like if you're owning a store, or if you're owning any kind of brand, like this is also your way of controlling the experience of the end user. So when they're tapping, like you're a pizza party company, and when someone is typing, I want to order a pizza from the pizza party company, instead of relying on how ChatGPT will handle this task, immediately, automatically, contextually, you are having like a pizza party application in here. A very important thing that they also highlighted in the news is that those applications are popping naturally. So you don't really need to call them. You don't really need to know that there is a booking application for this company or a flights application for that company. Whenever during the conversation it will be convenient to add this application, it will just be not naturally added.
Philip, though, interesting question here, because what will, if this concept will really get adoption, and you will have, let's say, a free pizza places offering that type of experience, how it will work? Like I'm sitting here in suburbs of Warsaw, want to order pizza, Pizza Hut, and I don't know, Domino's, both offering the option to engage with them, with their product, with their menu this way. Interesting how they will how ChatGPT will decide what's best for me. I'm a little bit suspicious that there will be some money from the merchant involved. Like I think it will be, you need to be relevant, but also you need to invest.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and probably we'll tap into this a little bit more a little bit later. I think it's kind of tricky, and we have to see to actually understand this, because the reality is if the context is very obvious, and like you're Domino's and you're asking for ordering pizza from Domino's, yes, then you will probably get this application. But if you're asking about something generic, we know that OpenAI, and generally there is a monetization problem with LLMs, and the way how they will be making money is probably through this, probably through some prioritization, ads, and this sort of stuff. We saw some evidence that they are already working on ads. I think in the end, this will work pretty much like any search engine in the end, because this is a search experience, right? So you will have to pay to be ranked higher for specific use cases. Though we don't know if the application will be immediately opening, or maybe user will be given some options and then only the application will be opening. I think this is really something to consider for the future.
They will have to play, like there will be a lot of experimentation, over next year or so, like how exactly it should sort of work.
Yep. So here we are, like we have this apps framework. So what I wanted to show you as well is how we handled this in Allokai. So first of all, like right now, this is something that is not publicly available, which means that if you're building an application, you can try it out, you can play with it, you can see how it works in ChatGPT, but the users won't yet will be able to use it. They are actually able to use some applications like Instacart, and there are some others that ChatGPT allowed through collaboration, but it's not generally available for everyone to put their apps in there yet. We probably can expect it as early as January, February next year. There's no definitive date set, but right now they're experimenting with the SDK itself, which actually makes sense to not roll out something like this immediately. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you like a brief example of how it works. Let's say we are having an application here, and right now the way how you can tap into this is actually you need to specifically say that right now I want to talk with Allokai Compass application. But as I said, like in the future, when it will be generally available, this thing will be happening pretty much automatically. Like it will be understanding, the context, and this application will be tapping into you. And I can say like, I am looking for a red t-shirt, like a very sophisticated need, as you could say. And what it will do, essentially, it knows that I am asking in a context of this. So it is porting this question to this application. Then what I am displaying in here is actually my custom made application. So these are React components. This is like a React interface. We have absolutely full control over how it looks, how it works, etc. And it just applies the correct interface and the content to the query. And we can obviously have much more in this application than that. And we can either click through this application and perform some actions, or we can ask a follow-up question or ask for a follow-up, action. Let's say, let's add first one to the cart. And it will know that right now it's time to use the cart component that we also have previously made. This is all coming out of the box with this allocate apps framework, but the reality is like it's probably not something that you will be using in this form. You'll be probably building your own components depending on the context, depending on the questions. So this way, as a merchant, you can have like semi-personalized discovery experience happening within ChatGPT that you're having full control over. And what is even more important, especially as someone on the merchant side, is that you can also decide when the end user will be redirected to the final application. So here we can click like open in allocate, and when I do this, it will obviously prompt me that, hey, like you want to open a different applications. Now I will open this different application, and here I am. Like we have our allocate compass assistant that now we were redirected in here, and we are in the cart, and we are seeing this product. And from there, for example, as a brand, maybe you would like user to perform some additional actions, some more sophisticated ones. As from there, you are actually owning this journey.
I love it, Philip. Note that how nicely and smoothly you showed this very important concept that customers started the product discovery somewhere outside your entity, outside your web shop. I mean, in the ChatGPT app which you created, but generally, like on that chatbot platform, they started this conversation, and here you're continuing. You're starting where the consumer left, added to the shopping cart, but the shopping assistant wants to continue that conversation rather than is completely disconnected. I really like this example.
Yeah, thank you. And I think to be honest, like this is probably how it's gonna look like, right? Mm-hmm. People will be performing like the discovery phase in the chat, and then hopping into the final application at some point. Now, this is not the only attempt. So OpenAI is pretty much not the only vendor that is trying to do something like this. So from Anthropic, we had something called MCP UI, and that right now turns into MCP applications. So their attempt was pretty much to also build like MCP first framework for building an interactive UI-rich applications in the chats. Right now it's turned into this MCP apps, and MCP apps is a concept that is standardized by both OpenAI and Anthropic. So you could think about like ChatGPT apps SDK and MCP UI, both from different vendors right now are joining forces to build a common standard which is called MCP applications. Though they are both saying it's an experimental. And Anthropic is actually leading this quite significantly on their end, I would say. From at least from the research perspective, they also have something called pretty much a way to connect different applications called connectors. So what we have seen in this apps SDK, I would say it is an equivalent of this. So you can pretty much like create applications and open them inside Anthropic, inside Claude, and another Anthropic interface, in another Anthropic LLMs. So you can open it in there and like pretty much interact with them just like with regular applications without leaving the LLM, which I think is very important.
To the first part of our kind of like our today's session, title itself, is it operating system? I think this example is really telling that it has some properties of operating system when you're kind of allowing user to interact with many applications to fulfill the workflow. And as you can see, like I can imagine here tapping into 2, 3, 4 applications to do some work, like as a product manager using, Asana and then Atlassian and maybe something else to kind of execute my workday workflow. So it kind of is like I'm using my Mac. Maybe in the future I will be using Claude.ai to do the work. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, it's interesting. It's gonna work eventually. So we've talked about those two things. And by the way, like this is the polls when they're showing like MCP apps, and with those previous technologies like OpenAI Apps SDK and MCP UI. But that would be something I would call it like brand-owned experiences, because there is also a bunch of non-brand owned experiences, and I think this is where we'll actually be seeing some interesting evolutions. So there is also something called Agentic Commerce Protocol that was released by OpenAI some time ago. And Agentic Commerce Protocol pretty much allows you to upload your products, really, as very simple JSONs, into the ChatGPT and allow shopping. As simple as that. So you can think about this more like a marketplace where you have your own products and you want them to be available inside ChatGPT. There is also something for Perplexity, which is called Perplexity Shopping. And what they are doing, and actually ChatGPT is also doing this, but not for Agentic Commerce Protocol. I know that it could be a little bit complicated, but the truth is it is complicated because ChatGPT on its own has pretty much 3 ways of shopping right now. One is Agentic Commerce Protocol, another one will be with apps, and another one is that when you're asking about some products already, it is just indexing them the way how the search engine is indexing them. And in 99% of cases, like this is the experience that we'll be landing with, like a standard indexing. No one has any control over this except OpenAI. So Perplexity took the same path with Perplexity Shopping. They're just indexing products and you can shop with it. ChatGPT went with this, calling it, shopping research. So you have this, smart way of calling it like, just a shopping with prompt. So you can research the products that you're looking for, etc. Both companies released it close to Black Friday, obviously, because that's the best time to try those things out on high volume. We also have something from Google, but Google is not calling it in anything very specific. You can pretty much just use AI mode in Google Shopping and just have this conversational experience. And to be frank, I think Google was the first one. They were just not announcing it much. It's just there. But also, it's showing the interesting dynamics, like Perplexity and Gemini or OpenAI and Gemini, they're in a completely different places regarding that, because both Perplexity and both OpenAI, they really have to do a lot of marketing around those things. While when we are talking about when we are talking about Gemini, they pretty much already have it. So the only thing that they have to do is like add a little AI layer on top of Google Shopping that they already have.
Yeah, but Philip, they have it, but they have also a money printing machine called Google Ads. Generally, and they have to very carefully think how to kind of sort of transfer that value that they create in standard searches into the AI. What to transfer? Will everything transfer? So they have to dance around that problem for a little bit. OpenAI doesn't have this problem. They just need to figure out the monetization stream. So they are more eager to do something, so to say, something as a first mover. Google will just follow, trying to defend their kingdom, which is gigantic. They make hundreds of billions of dollars only on advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I also think, eventually they will all do this. They will all have to do this at least.
Yes.
Okay. Though so we can look at this from this perspective, like OpenAI and Perplexity, they are going and OpenAI and Anthropic, they are going a little bit into the direction of giving a little bit more freedom to the brands that want to appear in those interfaces and giving them a framework for applications to be built. Obviously, they're also going with the standard way of having those more, owned by them experiences with, agent e-commerce protocol, Perplexity shopping, Gemini, and Perplexity. They are pretty much right now fully into the owned experience area, which means that you cannot really control that much of the things that are happening in there. It's fully in their hands. And this could be good, this could be bad. We'll actually discuss with Pavel a little bit about that in a moment, like who, to whom which channel is actually good, and where we believe it will be landing. But to be frank, we found also an article where someone was showing, here, when someone was showing, how Google Gemini is already adding their own components. Sometimes the components of their own applications, like connectors to things from Google Workspaces, like Google Maps, as well, into the chat. And to be honest, I think that could be a beginning of something. Maybe also their own apps framework that they will be there in the future, or maybe not. Let's see.
But see, I mean, that's telling. They started with, I mean, they obviously have great apps where daily, I mean, I can't run my life without Google Apps, but they are introducing their own apps into that. They're kind of behaving as a walleted garden because they're not sure how to monetize it yet. What's the best strategy here? So they are starting with enhancing Gemini experience with Google Maps. Does make sense. When they will start selling pizza over Gemini, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the competition will probably make them do this at some point anyway. It's very interesting to to look at this and try to predict how it's gonna look like, but the reality is, no one knows. Okay, so that would be about the interaction. So we know more or less where we are. We know that everyone works, on some sort of building their own apps ecosystem, or at least integrating with third parties. From OpenAI, we had 3 different ways of doing this. From Perplexity, we pretty much just have Perplexity shopping right now. From Anthropic, we had those connectors, and we also have MCP applications that probably will also be landing into OpenAI. So a lot of interesting stuff is happening. Gemini is right now just more or less like a search engine with some sprinkle of additional capabilities related to Google Workspaces, maybe with a new framework, maybe without any framework. Let's see. But yeah, so I'm curious right now, Pavel, while we're having all of those differences right now, and we clearly have 2 players that are lagging, like, do you think everyone will actually follow the trend of going more into the, being a platform, an app ecosystem, and, opening this for developers and encouraging developers to build there? Or maybe they will head a little bit more towards own experiences direction, which honestly, business-wise probably makes much more sense for them, where you will be pretty much the provider of the data, and they will be the ones dictating, the end user experiences, the the ranking, where those things appear, where they don't, etc. It's it's a question about the ownership and who will own the narrative, who will own the attention of the end user. Really, like, will it be an applications built by vendors, and then they will have also some control over making people leave those channels, or would brands will be trying to keep them there as long as possible and control the experience as much as possible? Like, I'm curious, what do you think about that?
I mean, now I only now thought, like, because basically that we're to some extent we're trying to constantly fit, like we have, as my friend from US is saying, we have a fish duck problem. Is it a fish or is it a duck? We don't know yet. Like, it's to some extent you're asking some big questions, like will it be, and I'm like, will it be more like a, I don't know, open platform like Facebook, where everybody can publish, and the social media platform just facilitate, or will it be like Amazon, where that's still a platform? Yeah, Amazon is a platform, but in terms of the owning owning the relationship with the platform, the consumers, they walleted it from platform participants that are, like adding products, let's put, or filling up the second, how to say, the second the second part, or the second dimension of the platform. Yeah, two second side. It's two-sided platforms. That's how it were called. So I honestly, I don't know. I think it you will. They have not yet decided, but I generally I will ally. I will agree with you that it will. They will more likely be opening it for people to create something in this platform. People meaning retailers and brands and companies, like the Claude.ai example shows that it's not only about, or even OpenAI ChatGPT apps, the partners that they released with. There is a lot of productivity apps there, like Canva or Figma, like so it's just go and make something useful for my users, and I think that's the best way. Google is started with their own apps because they have just great apps. They have Google Maps is a great product, so it does make sense to integrate into Gemini. But very soon people will say, why I can buy pizza on ChatGPT from my favorite pizzeria, and on Google I cannot do that. And obviously Gemini will have to react. So long story short, that's, I guess, my answer.
To some degree, some degree, yes. But also it could be that we all, I partially agree. Partially, I think all of those companies are motivated by greed, and obviously the biggest adoption is very important for them as well. So they need to strike a balance between those two things. But I think purely from the economical perspective, probably right now it's a wild west when it comes to the use cases. But at some point they will probably differentiate a lot. Like I could see a world where in any place where they could own the shopping experience to some degree and maybe put a fee on top, like agent e-commerce protocol, for example. This is where they will be trying to control this, because on the big scale, this is like a wonderful money for them. Like Shopify is pretty much a checkout company or a payment provider, right? This is how they're making most of the money, and I'm quite sure. Actually, there is a collaboration between Shopify and OpenAI.
Yeah,
and
ICP is the joint undertaking, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm betting the LLM providers, they will be willing to also put their own fee on top of those things, and kind of make the end user or maybe the company pay for this. Because when they will be owning this, I think there will be two key factors to control. One is the payment fee, another one is the ranking. So when this appears, how high for certain keywords, for certain context of the conversations. I'm quite sure that they will try to own this as much as possible. But right now, what I'm seeing with those OpenAI applications at the same time, OpenAI, Apps SDK, is that it is creating a loophole. So it is creating a way to avoid those things, like to immediately tap into a specific context and own this context, and then redirect the user, for example, to the to your store. So it's a similar situation as on Apple Store, companies are sometimes trying to redirect users to web application to avoid payments fee from Apple. So OpenAI applications could really become this kind of a loophole, and I'm sure that's those companies, they won't be very forgiving to these types of users. And what I could see that for specific use cases they will be prioritizing a certain kinds of experiences, and when there will be a shopping context, probably they'll be trying to prioritize buying within ChatGPT over suggesting an application. That's just my bet, but we will see. At the same time, we could also look at this from the perspective of like marketplaces and brand owned applications, and maybe it will be more something like this, right? There are certain types of brands that are just fine with being present in marketplaces, and on marketplaces already the marketplace is taking its cut, and they are not controlling how they are being displayed and what is the ranking, etc. Like if the visibility is what really matters to you, if the type of product that you are selling is a niche type of brand that doesn't really have their own fans, etc., that just want to buy Nike, or they want to buy Adidas or something like this. They just want to buy some shoes. Like probably in that case, like the visibility matter to you much more than saving money on this cut. Uh, so this type of brands, I think they will primarily be willing to be there. The question is what with the big brands, like how much they will be willing to do this. Like will they be trying to build their own applications? I think from the perspective of them, it's best to build their own applications and own this experience and then redirect their own store at some point, or maybe even perform a payment in there, but from their application. But it's something most convenient to the brand owners, but probably much less convenient to the LLM owners. So it could be a fight between buyers convenience and sellers convenience. It's interesting to see how it's gonna
Yeah.
evolve.
Exactly. I mean, I'm happy you're bringing that dimension of what we consumers we will vote with that our wallets for the best. That's for sure. And it's when you mention things like so what I think is very important is that we're trying to figure out how exactly it will work. And I have a story of a first learner advantage for you. Very short story. Again, it's not it's new breed of things. Those AI platforms. You cannot say they are marketplaces. You cannot say they are new Google. These are new things. But when you think about using one of those analogies that we so often use, you and I, with the App Store, I remember early days when retailers rushed to build like native app, which is essentially a copy paste of their web shop. Nobody is like downloading the Nike app just to buy shoes every second. Every quarter or so. I mean, so but they did it. I mean, one of the first web shops on iOS on App Store was actually one of the retailers, big shoe retailer web shops. They first learned that that's not how people want to use it. So when the competition rushed to actually deploy their own web shops there, they were already taking out from the App Store the web shop that they created like 3 months earlier. They knew it's not working, and they started to create a really engaging, consumer engaging apps. And I call it a first learner example. So a little bit discussing a little bit about how it will be versus let's just guys do try invest your time, use technology to figure out how your consumers will want to engage with you. That's probably the best advantage I have. That instead of waiting and seeing, let's just kind of do something. And doing something means in this environment, really apart from obvious things that you can do with Alokai, for example, technology, meaning how to employ AI into your own web shop. which is a no-brainer. But on those platforms, ChatGPT apps will be live in what month? I mean, I didn't check this week. They are
I think
promising soon.
there's no official timeline for this, but we
Timeline.
could assume that they would like to get an advantage as soon as possible. That probably this is
Yeah.
why they're already giving this to developers. I'm quite
Mm-hmm.
sure, like those specifications and things they're working on. This is not a fruit of years of discussions, etc. It's more like build
Mm-hmm.
quickly, put out there, let people play with it, gather feedback, and then iterate. They are still operating as a startup from that perspective, which is great
Yeah.
actually, because this is what we need. But like you mentioned, put something, and like I like it very much, and let's dig into that part. So let's talk about the something, because there's an
Mm-hmm.
obvious question. We're talking about those ChatGPT applications, and the question is like, will they even be something big? Like like will those applications, and this is pretty much the topic of our discussion, like will those generic LLM applications will turn into platforms and operating systems, and those applications within them will be really rich in a, when we're talking about the functionality, like multi-pages, multi-surfaced, you will be able to do pretty much everything in there, or it's gonna be more like a little bit more convenient interface, because obviously not everything can be uh, shown in a good way with just text response or like a generic response, like for category like e-commerce. Like we can imagine that for e-commerce, like there is pretty much a definitive set of components that can be used, and that would cover most of the use cases, uh, except maybe B2B and some less standard e-commerces. So do you think those ChatGPT applications will be real applications, or a simple interfaces that are answering to like a very specific use cases, like as we have seen, listing the products, adding something to the cart, without richer interactions? Like what is your bet? Like which direction we will go? Like
Good,
as
good, really good. Anything I will say will age not that well. So
probably
but I will,
probably
I
take this
will,
bet.
yeah. But I will try this. Listen, so I will try this. Listen, so about 2 weeks ago, I replaced. So I have on here on the additional screen on in a pivot, basically with the always on app. For a long time it was ChatGPT, then Perplexity, because I found out I do a lot of like quick searches, like it's a I replaced the main screen here on that monitor with classic Chrome and Google search recently, because I found out that if I do, especially if I do the products, think about that. You're typing in, you want to kind of impersonate something. Let's say we're trying to
Mhm.
buy a new laptop, and I really enjoyed. Like I found out finally the use case where the old good search is much better for me as a consumer than the perplexity search, so to say. A lot of text in perplexity search, a lot of text, a lot of good stuff. But I just typed in the product name, like a laptop name, and I see on the classical search, I see what the prices of that thing, how it looks, what other products compare to it, like what are the alternatives, because it's all in the Google results. It's much more convenient. It's much more informing me as a consumer,
Mhm.
than the let's say the pure text dump that Perplexity, ChatGPT, or Gemini will offer to you normally. But the question, so I can say they are terrible in the early stage of product discovery.
Mhm.
Without the access, without something like, hey, I mean, here is the crafted for you experience. So apps SDK, that these type of frameworks can help, because what I would appreciate, it's not only text, it's text, images, and like it's more informative, yeah. But then the interesting part is that in those on the other hand, it's different than from Google, because in what was happening before, I was doing this Google search,
Mhm.
I clicked and I went into a deep discovery and a deep brand relationship on their website,
Mhm.
to learn if that's the best product for me. Now I can do a lot of that in ChatGPT or in Perplexity by asking follow-up questions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm trying to say. It's kind of a different breed of thing. Like it's neither a discovery nor it's engagement channel. It's something in the middle. I can do part of discovery very well and part of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So we shall see. I mean, but if I would bet, if people like us, technology people that are deep into technology, will be able to offer great experiences using the ChatGPT apps and alike frameworks from or whatever, however the market will evolve. But if we people will engage with those experiences. Finally, it's about finding the best laptop. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. I like the sensor, and I think in the end it will probably end up like this. And if there's one thing that people hate doing is they hate switching context. So as long as at least when you're thinking about like a typical chain where it all starts with this discovery, as you said, and then we're going lower into like the pretty much the purchasing experience or engagement and purchasing, then like I think those OpenAI applications have a potential to cover all of this, as long as you said, it will be convenient. So probably at least that's my bet. There are two problems to solve. The first problem to solve is probably generally we will be trying to start with a fully conversational interface. So like let's look as the whole buying journey from the purely conversational standpoint. Then try to have this conversational journey and see where it's actually not very nice for the end user, like where actually this typically conversational interface fails. And for every event it could be different, especially when you're shipping B2B stuff or having like a product configurators or things like this, or you need a lot of visual stuff like your IKEA, and you have some application where you can, I don't know, post image of your room and then put a couch in there as well. Like those will be probably an opportunities to kind of tap into into this conversation with something more visual as an interface. Sometimes also it could be that again we have this configurator, right? And it might be 10 times easier to just click on three things or maybe use some toggle, etc., and have what you want than describing this to the user. So I think it's all gonna be about trying to map out the whole experience, see how much can be done just purely with the conversation, how much needs some additional layer where you're actually having an interface to either present something or take an input that is much more relevant to be clicked. And then also a question, if you as a brand would like the user to actually end up, for example, in your channel in the end and do some follow-up actions, or maybe perform a payment in there, because maybe there will be some kind of limitations regarding payments. Though I doubt. I mean, probably there will be some when we're talking about agent e-commerce protocol when the whole experience is owned. But for the ChatGPT applications, I think that would be a fight that they ultimately cannot win, the same as Apple is struggling with it right now. So yeah, that's probably it. But if I would be betting on this, I think when we are thinking about those, chat LLM generic interfaces as an operating systems, it is actually the first kind of operating system that is, more vertical rather than specific to the device. So it's not something that will be, an alternative to a laptop or a desktop OS or an alternative to a mobile OS. It will be something that will be living, inside those. So if you are thinking about this as this vertical operating system, I think it has a potential to be, the default one for the product discovery and maybe the whole shopping experience, as long as we figure out a good way to tap into this user flow that is conversational. Because there is also a matter of what people are lazy, so it's a matter of like if the new experience that we'll be able to offer them is easier to just going through a store and doing a few clicks and finding stuff. And to be honest, I think it can be. But also from the brand perspective, there is much less stuff you can show to them, like product recommendations, for example. It's not going to be as rich interface. So in many cases, maybe you would like to redirect them as soon as possible to your store rather than having the whole conversation in there. There is definitely potential to conduct the whole journey in there, and probably with a good sense of like user experience you can do this. But there is also a question like, would you? There won't be a newsletter pop-up, there won't be a product recommendations, or there can be a product recommendations, but then we're
Can
actually
be, why
creating like
not?
a whole big
Yeah.
page. Uh, which then we can also end up with, Pavel, what you were saying, that maybe people will be just porting the whole experiences inside the whole storefronts inside those applications, and depending on the context, just sometimes opening a certain page, maybe with a slightly changed interface, but they will actually be very rich when it comes to a lot of stuff. Who
Let
knows?
me try to, Philip, because you just convinced me to make a bold prediction. Because we're talking about convenience, and I can claim, yeah, convenient. I mean, when convenient for people, I can claim use cases, something like I'm driving home from work, I'm asking my ChatGPT to do a product research for me and show those three best product options in a nice UI on Alokai powered storefront. When I'm coming home, it should be ready on my big screen. I mean that type of agentic workflow that is actually also interacting with many devices. Why
Mhm.
not? Operating system. But here is my bold prediction. In B2B, it will get adopted very soon.
Oh yeah.
Imagine like your killer what I'm hearing from my SAP friend, that the killer feature, like the feature they love in your Alokai Compass demo, is that feature where you're like saying like, here is the invoice from the past order, just reorder the thing. Very
Yeah.
convenient. You don't have to work with those bulky and honestly like order forms that in B2B haven't changed for last 20 years. So you're kind of bringing something fresh here. Yeah. And then
Yeah,
imagine
I
the use
agree.
case. You got an email. You ask ChatGPT, because ChatGPT has access to your Gmail or your Outlook account, to read that email. That's email from your contractor, and you say like, dear ChatGPT, read the email, extract the product names, and talk to my supplier portal to order those stuff. Like, you're not leaving ChatGPT interface here. You don't need to.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Maybe just a little bit of it at the very end as a confirmation or something like this. But yeah.
Yeah.
So we can also agree that like the more, I think we've been talking about this, like the more conversational by nature the experiences. Like if there is something that you can do by calling to someone, it's probably like a perfect thing to do to port completely into ChatGPT. Maybe not even through
Hmm.
application, to be honest, or maybe through a very
Yeah.
simple application. Uh, Okay, so like that would mark like the general discussion, like what it is. And I know I saw that we had some issues with the link to the stream. So pretty much the software that we're using has started another stream, and the other one was started. So there might be plenty of people who just joined some time ago. I'm highly recommending you to see the first part of the stream, where we are pretty much doing a quick introduction to like where we are industry-wise with those ChatGPT applications, who has them, who doesn't have them, what is the state for Perplexity, for OpenAI, for Gemini, etc., etc. Because it gives you also a good glimpse of like why we're having this discussion, and where you could expect we'll be heading. So maybe let's finish with one last topic. And the last topic is like, what is the current state of those frameworks applications? And is it something that companies really should be looking at right now and considering adopting, or is it more something on the watch list, like, okay, let's look how this evolves, etc., but like it's probably not worth experimenting in right now? And I have my answer, and my answer will probably be very biased, and also I'll be mentioning what we have built at Alokai, because I think this is pretty relevant. But before that, I want to hear you.
Awesome. I have an answer to you, very straightforward. Today, you sent me a link today in the morning, and I said, Philip, Shoot, Philip, gold. Yes, that's exactly it. We're seeing that the chat, the OpenAI apps idea is being implemented into MCP protocol itself. And your reaction was like, "Yeah, Pavel, but it's like 2 weeks old." So, I mean, my point, it's hard to keep up. There will be more ideas than we saw, more ideas that I mean, are still coming. Even some of the ideas will fail. So it's clearly the early stage, in my opinion. Though there is one simple thing for a big brand, everything that will be offering them ability to engage with consumers on their own terms will be preferred.
Yep.
So I will not see a lot of Nikes and the Under Armours loading their product catalogs to ChatGPT and hope for the
Yep.
best, but we will see them playing with things like ChatGPT apps.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. Like the reality is, people are already using those things for shopping experiences. For the, like generally to buy, to find products, etc. So the question is, like, as a brand, knowing that your users are actually using this channel, like, can you afford not controlling this experience? I don't think many can afford not controlling this experience while they can.
Hmm.
uh, so it's not about the technology of the future, it's about the users that are using it right now, and there's a lot of brands that are there already. It's not generally available, like the OpenAI applications. They're not generally available in a way that you cannot just go there and upload it and it works. uh, but a lot of brands already partner with OpenAI to have this early access, and they are there. So as soon as it will be generally available, especially when you own a well-known brand, I think it's a no-brainer. The good news is, in the end, this is just a React application. Obviously, it's a different environment, etc. So like what we did at Allokai, what we are shopping together with Allokai Compass is pretty much a framework to build those applications by reusing the components from your storefront, by reusing the connections from Allokai Connect, being deployed on Allokai infrastructure. So it can really be kind of like an add-on to your existing application, even within a monorepo, using exactly the same components, rather than something that you're starting from scratch and have to maintain from scratch. I'm not saying you cannot do this without Allokai, because like if we did it, any smart developer can do this. So if you're considering be on this new channel, obviously if this is the time for you to go into composable, headless, etc., like be my guest. I would love to talk about this, and we can use Allokai and Allokai Compass. But even if you're not, uh, consider just being there and reusing your existing components. It doesn't have to be a really huge investment at this point, and you can already build your position, experiment a little bit, etc. And now that would be the right time. We still have 8 minutes to see if we have someone on the chat with the questions, maybe that you would like to ask us, or maybe that you would like us to discuss. um,
As we're waiting for a question, because hopefully someone is typing very interesting question, I have one thing to share on a personal note, because we won't, I mean, be able to meet before Christmas. After Christmas and New Year's time, I'm joining Allokai. So I'm joining Allokai as a full-time working with you, so I'm very excited about that. And why I chose to a random moment to share it, because when you talked about those experiences that we intend to build with our customers, I have a personal goal of find out of many great brands that you guys are running, to find a brand that will want to build something like I would call it a vertical experience. So not necessarily high. How about exposing your product catalog in a nice, convenient way to ChatGPT? But how about building the app, which is like, I don't know, a beauty advisor for a beauty brand that help you to kind of navigate, give you some advices in an engaging way. The same thing that we somehow to some extent as consumers kind of used to on ChatGPT already, but in more engaging way, because it will be A, brand control, B, it will be more visual. I also just like to see pictures, on not only text, and that's the beauty of those apps. So we shall be looking, guys, for really cool ideas of early adopters. We have we have a bunch of really good ideas. We want to validate those ideas with brands, so including B2B ideas. So I'm so excited that that it also is linked to the fact that, but yes, as of January, I'm starting with you guys. Very happy to be there.
Which leaves us with two conclusions then. The first one is there will be more agentic commerce live, as Pavel will be working with us full time. And the second one, if you are a kind of like an early adopter that is not even using HelloKai at this point, like just wants to experiment with this, like let's stay in touch. Let's see, if there is something we can work out together, and put some nice, interesting case study out of the market, some nice, interesting product. Because to be honest, we're absolutely obsessed with this topic. As you have seen, we're having a lot of opinions on that. And well, if there's anything interesting that can be done, we're actually doing this with some of our customers currently, by the way. Let's have a chat and see if this can work out. Thank you so much. The next Agentic Commerce Live will happen next year, probably some early next year, I would say early January or late January, actually, because me and Pavel will be flying to a conference in New York and Vegas. So if you're there, if you're on NRF, for example, drop us a note. We would love to meet and discuss. But yeah, it's definitely coming next year. And there's a lot of topics we want to cover already. And maybe we'll even be doing this much more often than 2 weeks, maybe every week, depending on how many topics we'll have, how much time we'll have to discuss them. Thank you.
And there is one more thing, guys. There is a room for third person, or there is, if you believe it's only 2 person that can do those calls, one of us can disappear. If you have something interesting to share, let us know. How about in the future doing such one of the episodes with you?
There could even be a place for a fourth person, to be honest. Let's find out. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care and see you next year. And we won't see you. So already, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Bye.
Take care, guys.